I was really excited about this because in our conversation before about connection and relationship and at different times in your life, and now I really had an epiphany when you asked me at age 51 to um, pinpoint what I want.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I was just listening to a podcast where they're talking about the movie The Notebook, and they were specifically talking about the what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And
Yeah.
so, and then you asked me, would you like a session? I was like, oh no, I think that those what 4 words were all I needed for a session for me because I could sit with that for however long I want to. Because
Right.
realizing that as a feminine, and like I said, 5 decades feminine, um, that question is new.
It well,
It's new because we
it's
were
new and
taught
it's
to that.
and we're at a different I mean, I'm a little bit younger than you, but not much, couple years. But it's new now too. Like
It's
I
new
think
to the earth. It's new
yeah.
to all of us. Because isn't this the first time since the dawn of the planet that the universe is saying, hey, relationship and romantic relationship doesn't have to have anything to do with survival.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're all like, what?
Yeah.
Or procreation or anything. It can just be for the expansion of your soul and for the enjoyment of your life. So it is new for us and it's really rocked my world to just even put that question to the forefront of all my relationships, past and present and future, and go, wow, that as a motivating focus is radical.
Yeah.
But you're living that.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Well, I spent I had several relationships that were the way I look at just about every relationship. Well, I think every relationship, it's going to bring you something. And um it could be and I had a friend of mine said it's either a lesson or a blessing, like or maybe both. And I had especially during this time when we had COVID and things were kind of locked down and I'm not really like I don't go out and go to bars and not like that's a great place to meet people anyway necessarily, but I wasn't going out to find people. And and I was really against the dating apps because I'm like you. I'm like I gotta feel their energy. Like I got and more than just what people post on profiles and stuff. So anyway, I spent a good couple of years going, I need to create energetically the mate that I want, be honest about it with myself. But then I also have to become the match to that. And it was actually in that I started deep diving and spirit told me very strongly, like, you're going to start doing couples workshops and retreats. And I'm like, this seems odd. I'm not a couple. And it was that really it took out that detail actually doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
the connection is the point. The conscious connection is the point. So it's the connection with ourselves as well as the connection with our partner. So
Well,
yeah,
and
I
when
spent
you said, I feel like when you said, but I'm not a couple, spirit was like, well, exactly. That's why I want you to teach this because don't you find yourself drawn to teach and coach and do
yeah,
whatever it is that you're growing into because that's part of becoming the match for it, right?
for sure. And I also think at and what it turned out to be too is that actually the outsider's perspective was what these couples needed. Me just looking at it straight from energy, touch, just all these components of like this is what I want. This is what I believe keeps two people connected if they're both desiring to do so. So it doesn't matter if you've been together for 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, and I've had people all over the spectrum. and since I've been in my relationship, this has been constant upfront for it's how I it's how I created my partner. Um, it
How does he feel?
manifested.
How does your partner feel about having been created?
It's so funny because he's so not he's not into all the energy and all that kind of stuff.
He's like,
But
sure, yeah, you created me. Okay.
he's so open to it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's not out there pulling cards and using crystals, but he does have crystals by his
He's like,
bedside now.
whatever
And
got me here is great.
yeah. So yeah, we joke about it. I'm like, I manifested you, right? I'm like, not that you didn't exist before, but so it's a funny conversation. But yeah, it's but that's what I did is a couple of years ago. I was like, look, I don't want to just mess around dating. Um, what do I really want? And it was all energy. Yeah, there's some other tidbits, some structures, some, what they look like, this and that, but most of it was energy. How do I want to feel with this person? And how do I want our relationship, our connection to feel? And when I honed in on that, and then again, through the guidance of spirit, teaching it for a couple years, boom, here he comes.
And then how did you recognize and receive that boom moment? Because, it seems that sometimes we have an easy time manifesting and then a difficult time letting spirit actually bring the manifestation in. So how did you move through that?
Well, yeah, that's another piece too. So there was just a small tidbit of our meeting. Like it was literally my body was it was a full body yes. And I'm not super like I know a little bit about human design, but not a ton. So I'm not sure if that's in your field as well, but of practice.
Mhm.
But I know that is who I like. My body, my gut. I'm a yes or no. Um, and so my everything was yes, but it was my mind that was like, but what about this? But what about that?
Yeah.
Like this thing and that thing. And it was a conscious connection for me to daily say, love him. And it wasn't forceful. It's not saying, love somebody that you don't love. It was like shutting down the self sabotage or just some of the little piddly stuff that actually doesn't really matter because we're all individuals. Like I was kind of ignoring or not giving the full weight to what I actually wanted. The recipe that I created, I was like, "Oh, that's great. That seems but what about this?" So, it really took a little bit of conscious effort for me to go, "Wait, no, Sarah, this is what you've created."
Mm.
And I just kept telling my lean in, lean in. And the more I lean in, the more he expands and we grow together. And it's um yeah, it's really amazing that as much as I knew what to do, how to create this, I knew what I was asking for. I knew the game I was playing, not game, but the system I was working in, but I still had my old triggers of like, going so many years with all the stuff that I've tried to heal over the years. I still had
Mhm.
to kind of face that head on and go, wait a second. I see you. You're trying to sabotage me. I'm not going to
Yeah.
let that happen.
Mhm.
I'm going to lean into the good stuff. So there was the manifestation and then there was the conscious like connection to totally absorbing and allowing in
Yeah.
what I wanted.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And let's talk about the what you want aspect because, certainly uh the models of relationship that we've seen in society or very little of that does seem to do with what you want, to have to do with what you want. It does seem more to do with um you know these other factors you're talking about, like what the mind says is important. Also, just getting swept up in emotion or passion and of course we know now through doing this energy work that a lot of that intense passion is actually your soul saying there's something for me to heal here. So it's not really a sign of sustainability, but it is a sign of, oh, you're going to transform through this relationship. Not that you can't have the passion and stuff with the other, but
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So it how do you view that shift from all these other factors of the way we look at relationship to this central focus of just focusing in on what you want and creating space for that and being the match to that?
Well, I think part of it, at least my initial response would be age for me, the age for me personally right now. I think it's different when you're 20 because you're looking at, or 22 or 25 or whatever. There might be a little bit more of a plan of, you're starting your career or figuring out your career, your path. We want kids? What do our parents say? Religion. There's still so many other voices coming in. And I think it's probably harder at that time. And I would say it would be great if we were teaching our kids not to get like into that too much, but more about, yeah, what do you want? Like, not what do you want from, like, I want a BMW and $1 million, and that's great. Like, that's fine. But like, what is your soul calling for?
Yeah.
And I do believe there are some parents and paths, some religious areas and spiritual practices that help people find a mate through, I guess, their belief system. Um, I didn't grow up with that. I didn't grow up with any kind of direction as far as who to be. Like, what are your values? Like, so it took me half my life to find out who I am and what I really want. So I guess my
Mm.
personal journey is a little different in a way. It was like I finally woke up to say, "Oh, I get to I get to create the partnership that I want."
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm totally answering your question, but I think later in life, some of the things I want are different, but I'd like to think the outcome might be different at, say, 20, but I don't think the question, what do I want, should be any different.
Yeah, and I do
Is
believe
that
it comes down to never putting what it is that is right for you, that you're like you said, your soul calls for behind anything else,
yeah.
because that's the thing that it feels like this generation or young people now for the first time are being given permission to not sublimate that call of the soul underneath, well, what does society want? Or what does this other person want? What does this masculine person want? If I'm a feminine. So it's, really shifting to this place of, no, it's okay to make that your number one. And it is a masculine feminine issue because certainly masculines are mostly taught to make that your number one.
Well, and yeah, I think um I just did I've been in a little bit of a phase of, because I just came back from hosting this women's retreat, and the idea that being selfish is not selfish. And I think people think, oh, if I put myself first, that's egotistic, that's this and that, and nobody else is going to serve. I look at it from a place of that spiritual connection. It's not just what I want and what can I get from other people. It's who do I want to be, and from a relationship standpoint, the mate of that. It's not just what I want. Like, I want to serve my partner, and I want him to appreciate that. So it's, and vice versa. Like, it's not just about what I want from somebody else. It's actually who I want to be
Yeah.
and how I want to be appreciated
Yeah. How do I
for
want to
that as well.
give? How do I want my gifts to be received? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the same in work too. Like, it's been hard over the years, but sometimes you probably get this too. Like, a client comes forward and they want all this stuff from you, but I'm like, you're
Yeah.
not my you're not my client.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to find what you need,
Yeah.
but we're not a match.
Yeah. I think it does come down when we're talking about the feminine energy to boundaries, and us learning those boundaries, whether it's in personal relationship or work. And it does seem in a lot of the work I do when I'm working with feminines who are kind of changing their whole way of looking at themselves and their lives. It is news, especially to those of us over 40. It's like, you mean I can, put my own self at least among those that I'm valuing, and because really subconsciously it was taught, no, you're last, everybody else is first, because that's what makes you a good feminine. And we're just learning that actually when you receive and when you allow yourself to focus on what does nourish you, what do you want in that regard, you're benefiting everybody you're connecting to so much more.
Right. Yeah, that, and it's the kind of the old common, um, you know, analogy or whatever. Put your mask on
Yeah.
first on the airplane, and it's so true because I know when I am, and especially now, like I found inside this container of my relationship, how we've blossomed because we're both being fed,
Yes.
and it's equal, and we talk about it, and it's his needs versus my needs and what have you, and it's like with the women in this retreat this past weekend, several of them were like, it was hard for them to say yes
Mhm.
to taking a weekend. I mean, Friday through Sunday, not a lot of time, 2 hours away. It's beautiful, but it was hard for them to say yes to put their family on the back burner for a couple
Yeah.
of days, whatever. And I see this too in a lot of the conversations, kind of tying it back into the relationships, where the couples that I know who have kids who have been together for a long time, they're like, our relationship comes before the kids.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean the kids are not taken care of and not nourished. But what's beneficial for the kids to see is that mom and dad are like, they are strong
Mhm.
because they are leading their kids through this journey. And so individually, and so when I work with my couples, I'm like, it's kind of, I think it's more of a spiritual phrase, but I love it. And a triple braided cord is not easily broken. I say it's you, your partner, and the relationship. And so you have to, inside the relationship, you have to be served and whole and taken care of and nourished. And, whoever your partner is does as well. And then that will take care of the relationship as well. And play that into any other area. If if I'm working with a client who is taking, and I'm not feeling like it's a good bond or a good connection, then that's going to limit, I believe, my ability to really take care of them. So I look at that, it's the whole container. And just as we look at the body, you can't just look at the nose and the eyes and the hands and the knees. You've really got to look at the whole body. Yes, some of those are independent, but to make the whole thing work, I mean, yeah, it's I love the idea of helping women. I Because I work with women specifically, but then I work with the couple, helping them own what they need, and own what they need could be different than what it was 10, 15 years ago. So I think intention is so important. One of the things, are you familiar with Dr. David Hawkins? I
A
forget if
little
we
bit.
talked
A
about
little
that
bit.
when we
Mhm.
had our chat the other day.
Yeah.
Um, Helping people understand what they're truly feeling at any given time it's always a mind blower of an exercise for for the client. And that's one thing that I use so much. So one thing I like to help my couples do is, what are you actually feeling in this moment? And how far away is like what you actually want to feel? So if I'm in anger or fear or something like that, and you expect to go from anger to love in an instant, it's probably not going to happen. It doesn't mean it can't happen, or it might happen for a moment or whatever. That's a big stretch of emotional yardage to move from, and that's usually where I end up talking with my couples most about, is in the emotions and the energy. So expectation of, I'm going to come home in a super bad mood, and my husband or my wife, or however, however that plays, my partner is just going to take that and love me anyway, and have the smile on their face, and that's going to make me okay, and I'm going to release it, and all this is going to be fine. It's just not it's not, it doesn't work that way. So what I help them work through is a series of real, and then, somewhat fantasy situations of what that looks like emotionally. And when they realize, oh, yeah, when I come home and I have this, whatever it is, this fear, anger, frustration, and I'm bringing that in, and I have no idea where my partner's at emotionally. Now, if they're supercharged, it might not hurt them that bad. But if they're feeling weak too, and I think Brene Brown talks about this as well, like, where are you in any given moment inside your relation? How much do you have to give? And being able to clearly communicate, hey, this isn't about you, um, but this is where I'm at. And like, I just don't have anything else to give at the moment. And hopefully they can either understand that if they don't have anything extra to give, or if they have more, they like, I got this. Like, I'm on a high. I can help you. And I just went through this with my partner, where I'm just like beat up in a lot of ways. And I was just sitting in silence. He's like, is it about me? I was like, no, it's not about you. And he's like, what do you need? I'm like, just let me, I'm gonna, like, we're big touchers. So we just held hands, and we were in a public arena. So I'm like, I'm not gonna lose my, what, here. Like, I just need to process it. And then he knows me well enough now. He can feel me relax. And then he had the opportunity where he could put on the butter, and I was willing to receive it. But there was a small little time where I was like, I have to process it. It wasn't his to fix, and he wasn't feeling like less of a partner because he couldn't fix it at the moment. He just let me be. But that's something we've had to talk about. He understands how I work through stuff, and I have to give him enough information so he knows where I'm at. It's not about him. So that's I think that's a huge thing around expectation is, I I do think women tend to expect men to read their minds, or maybe it's their partners in general.
Yeah.
And we both want
Well,
them
we
to fix it,
expect, I
but
mean,
kind of
just
don't
it's
want them
equal
to fix it.
opportunity. We expect men and other women to read our minds.
Sure.
We
Yeah.
expect
Yeah.
everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, and know all the full outline, chapter A1, all the the sub notes of what exactly is going on in this brain. And that's what makes women beautiful. Like, I'm not, I love being a woman. I love having all these layers of emotions and how all this stuff works.
Mhm.
It's just not, it doesn't make sense to everybody.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a huge thing around expectation, is creating some communication lines where you guys know what you are talking about, and being willing to say, look, like, I I think ego gets in the way a lot. And I know I experience this a lot, feeling like I know a lot about this stuff. I should act better sometimes. And then I remember I'm still human and stuff happens, and I'm like, all right, so I get to check myself
Yeah.
and communicate around what's going on. And then do it's weird. I hate to make it sound like it's not romantic, but I think it helps, like, and then ask the follow-up question, like,
Right.
does that make sense to you? Do you
Right.
get that? Like, what do you think I just said?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It does
and then
kind of
you
have to
find out if you're on the
be
same page or not.
right. It does kind of have to be like a workbook exercise in order to move past where our egos automatically want us to stop. Because
Yeah.
our egos want us to go, well, they should just get it if they love us and they don't, so end,
Yeah.
and we'll just go into our ego coping mechanisms and just sort of be big babies in the situation. But the mature viewpoint is to say, okay, there's going to be something beyond this. Let's work that together. Now, I love something you said earlier because you were talking about working with partners and you said if both partners are wanting to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of, the clients that I'm working with and I've certainly had many experiences in my own life, but it often happens that the other partner just is not willing or able because of
Yeah.
all those conditioning factors we talked about, as many as there are for the feminine, there are just as many for the masculine energy that say, we did not equip you to go past this point. This is, we did not teach our masculines how to connect, or how to even want to connect on a level
Yeah.
that goes beyond. So I would love to hear your insight there, how you approach that if you find that, wow, we're imbalanced because one person is gung ho and one person's not open to this process, not wanting to pull the book out and work on it.
Yeah. What I've found so far, I think in the environments and the events and containers that people have showed up, they're both willing on some level. Um, but I would say speaking one on one with a couple of my um where I'm just working with one of the two partners, usually the female. Um there's a couple of hard decisions that need to be made. What are they willing to do? Like, and I'll say this about my one of my previous relationships. He had reached his limit of where how he thought he was fixed. I was moving beyond that, and I
And
gave a
just
certain
for the listener, that was fixed in air quotes.
yeah.
Since there's no
um
such thing as fixing ourselves, but
yeah.
yes, he had this impression that he was quote
Yeah,
done. Yeah.
he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a certain amount of extra legwork I was willing to do where I felt I was pulling a little bit more of the emotional work and creating more of the opportunities to connect and do all that. And I was fine with that being lopsided because I wanted to give this as much opportunity to heal as it possibly could. And then it just came to a point where it clearly was not going to go that route. And I don't ever like to, for clarification, I'm not a licensed, like marriage counselor or anything like that. I think that's an individual choice. I would love to see people fix more than I want them to separate. But that's such an individual choice. If somebody is not willing to, and maybe that's their human route on this particular trajectory, is not to heal. I do think it is what it is. Like some people just don't heal. Um,
Or maybe, they get to a certain point and then it's sort of like, I'm going to bookmark this for the next lifetime or for much later in my lifetime. Or, yeah.
or their journey was to be the catalyst for that other person to, like, for me, I shot in a totally, like, it was great for a lot of reasons, and then it catapulted me to another level of my healing and my awareness, my understanding.
Right.
So
Right.
he was potentially maybe a little bit more of a supporting character in my journey, and I've been that in other people's journeys, and I
Yeah.
believe in that part too. And so I would find, like, you've got to have an honest conversation with yourself of what you like, back to what do you want, and kind of what are you willing to live with, so to speak.
Yeah.
How important is that? Because
Yeah.
again, with my current relationship, I don't think he's ever going to be sitting down and lotus meditating with me with sage burning and whatever. I don't need him to.
Right.
What I need him to do is meet me in certain of those emotional categories.
Yeah.
And so there are certain things that I guess that's where we have to take that personal
Yeah.
checklist of like, what do you want? What's not really that big of a deal?
Yeah.
And what's the deal, like what's the deal breaker?
And telling yourself the truth is so potent because, you know, if you, let's say you are in a certain situation or you're meeting certain limitations in yourself or someone else, at least know why you're doing that and be clear about where you are in that. There's no contest. It's not like anybody's going to come and test your relationship and be like, so let's test you on all these areas of compatibility and perfection. No, but at least know, and I'm getting huge spirituals with this. If you just know, and embrace the what isness of what is, that can, oh, look at that. And I just pulled the Ace of Swords, which is that part of truth. Just the truth is so powerful. And not trying to hold up these illusions of, no, no, it's really this, or, but it's only this, but then that. And because that's just wasting your internal energy that the universe could be bringing in so much more good stuff, within and outside your relationship if you just operate in that place of truth.
Yeah. And I know, again, in the work with my clients and then in my current relationship, that some of the stuff that I thought was important a long time ago isn't important now to me currently. And it's okay to, I had to have a big ego check with, I didn't realize just how much of a list of what I had that was like, they have to be this way because this is what I expect. It was like kind of going back to the expectation thing. And I realized I was trying to impose a little bit too much on other people's right to be who they are because
Yeah.
I thought this is the right way to be. And so there's a huge ego check and say, what does that mean? Like, why do you feel like you need to control that part of
Yeah.
that person? So
Yeah.
yeah, being really honest with myself and also being honest with my partner in vocalizing some of this, which has been hard sometimes to be like, hey, I know I'm this way. I know I have lots of opinions and lots of things. I said, but I'm also willing to um like I kind of want you to understand a little bit of what I'm working through. You don't need to fix it, and it's not a bad thing, but this is where I'm getting caught up in my own trap a little bit, my own
Yeah.
mind trap. And even in that communication, sometimes he wants to know more, and other times he's like, "All right, I get it. You were kind of, in a
Yeah.
space there for a minute." And yeah, being honest about, "Hey, I'm working through something, and it's not a
Mhm.
big deal, you know, but I'm realizing something that yes, our interactions, something happened in our relationship that caused this to come up, but it doesn't mean it's wrong or bad. But I have enough work, I've done enough work to realize that's my thing I get to process. And he can
Yeah.
hold me and support me in that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I
And
can't have to do anything
spirit,
about
yeah. And just understanding that this is our roles. Spirit was just giving me an image of, you walk through some houses and maybe you don't see that many mirrors, There's just why do they just have this tiny little mirror in here and then where's their full length, And then you walk through other houses like, dang, there's mirrors everywhere and I could just see myself everywhere. Oh, look at this
Yeah.
bathroom. It's a whole mirrored wall. Okay. And you see more than you really maybe want to of
Yeah.
yourself at times. This is a big part, don't you think, of you deciding what do I want in a relationship? Because that person, when you are enrolling this person to be in your life in this capacity, their number one thing is being a mirror to you.
Yeah.
You know, not in a, hey, you got to match everything about me, but in a way where you realize, wow, if I move into this partnership, I'm going to be moving into a house of mirrors, basically. And, you know, let me first be real with what I want to see, what I do see, and what I refuse to see, because all those things will be played out. And if I, like, let's say there's a room where it's like, I don't want mirrors in this room, okay? I do not. This is a part of me that I really don't want reflected to me all the time. It doesn't feel loving to me because we don't have to be that okay with our every single part of ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
Communicating that, being like, there's this wing of me that I would really prefer to only visit sometimes.
Yeah.
And just communicate all that so that your mirror partner is like, you're on the same page with that. Cause I feel like a lot of us are like, well, marriage and partnership, that just means house of mirrors everywhere. And then others of us are like, I don't want that. But we
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
really say that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I like that. That reflection is so important, whether it's in your romantic partnership or if you got friend. I mean, because yeah, I have my romantic partnership mirroring reflection, and then I've got other people, colleagues, or other people in my field that will help me share that are a little bit more attuned to that topic. Um, my partner, he can see some things, but I have other people in my career and in similar paths who can see things in a different way. And yeah, reflection is so important both for supporting our growth and acknowledging stuff that we don't see. Again, this retreat that we were at, it was a lot about helping these women acknowledge what they weren't seeing in themselves, because the good things, like how far they've come and all this kind of stuff, and holding them through their pain and the joy as well. Um, but then yeah, there's the reflection of like, listen, sister, you're pushing it. I love you, but and yeah, you're right. There's some areas where, and there's a lot of mirrors where I don't want to keep them up all the time. I have to prepare myself to put it up.
Right. Like, can we
And
only take this one out on special occasions? Yes.
yeah, like I'm ready to hear,
Right.
and then I got to put it away and I got to
Yeah.
work on everything that was reflected during that time.
Yeah.
And
Because
then
there
yeah,
are a lot of illusions in reflection when we're not on the same page with that.
yeah,
Um, I will say another aspect of when I was just listening to this thing and they were talking about the Notebook movie, it was, someone made the point that, this is, it's just sorry to spoil that, 3 decades old movie, but the part where she doesn't remember and they die together at the end, that's like the best case scenario
yeah,
for a romantic partnership is that you live this life together, it's very, very important to you, you cherish it, and then you're able to kind of, Thelma and Louise off into the beyond together.
yeah,
But if that doesn't happen, there are, sorry to be like a downer, but it's like there are various and sundry other ways that this particular partnership can go
yeah,
that aren't that, but it is going to reach an end. And I feel like with partnership and with marriage particularly, we in the past have held ourselves to such a magical and idealistic picture that denies this reality, that hey, we're either gonna, you know, um, come to the end of the season of this partnership, or we're gonna come to the end of the season of one of our lifetimes, or both. But the partnership is about what we're doing in the meantime, and I feel like we are so afraid of that ending to connection, how we view it, because it's not really an ending, but we're so afraid of the loss of, because even when I describe that, it's like, oh God, I can just feel people being like, thanks a lot. I was getting married tomorrow and now but but when we embrace the truth of that, when we embrace the truth and say, yeah, and that is beautiful. I mean, that's like one of the most beautiful love story movies of all time. So,
Hits
but
me every time.
right, but it
Yeah.
gets you because it's in truth, not because it's an illusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like that's an important part of embracing partnership that we have not done before this point in time, because we've been like, well, let's just, squirrel that away. Divorce has been seen as a sad ending. Long-term marriage has been seen as happy no matter what is happening behind the scenes. And now we're spirit saying, hey, we live in an age where these illusions are not going to continue. The light is going to go everywhere. So, do you feel that that's an awareness that is an ingredient when you're talking about manifesting, that you have to manifest into this partnership of, it's not going to be about some happy ending. It's about how we're moving through every moment in presence and changing and evolving and
Well,
allowing ourselves.
one of the couples that came to one of my events said something that I loved, which was, he's like, our relationship, and they've been together for like 20 years. I think they were high school or college, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, been together for a long time, couple kids, and they're doing all the things. Like they totally love each other. Nothing's wrong per se, but they just know, like, I still choose you. So we're going to do all of the things that we can um, to support our relationship. And I love them to death. And so, but what they said is our relationship is, it has a container, it has a fence, but the door is open. He's like, but every day we choose not to walk through that door and leave the commitment and the relationship and everything. And I love that. They're like, yes, they're married. They have no desire to separate. I mean, they're still continually choosing each other, but they know, they can't see the future. They can't predict how things are going to, and they got together at such a young age. They're kind of, I mean, who knows? But yes, their daily plan is, I still love you and I want you and let's keep working at this. But it's a daily choice or weekly choice or however you want to look at it. And I love that. Again, it's not saying divorce is right and it's not saying it's wrong. It's not saying just because you've been together for, you know, 60 years or 50 years or however long, which seems crazy right now, but you do see and they barely talk. They're still together. And I'm like, and that's something my partner and I talked about. Like, we want to, we want to be together for a long time, but we want to literally actually be together. It's not just it's not just about racking up the years to say we've been together for this long. We want to be connected. And again, it goes back to what do you want and what is your expectation? Like, I don't want to just clock down, certain number of years together. I
Right.
want our relationship to be full and nourishing and loving, and that my goal, personally speaking, is a emotional and energy goal.
Yeah.
It's not a timeline
Well, it makes
because I,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can't predict.
It feels
Yeah.
like what we want in partnership is the same thing that spirit really wants with us, which is, every day, just get up and align with spirit.
Yeah.
Just get up and align with today. I want to live this day in alignment with spirit, not kind of, being half engaged or half connected or
Right.
disconnected, but really be, and knowing you can't do that every day, but that's your intention. And I feel like that's what we want with our partnerships too, to say like, I'm aligned and I'm here and I'm going to do my best.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's going to be plenty of days where it's going to seem hard, and we've hit some hard times recently with, he's a father and I'm not a mother. I don't have any kids. And it's different for me being around kids. It has nothing to do with him or his kids per se. It's
Yeah.
just it's a new energy for me. It's a new experience for me. And it's both what I want, but also I had no way of like predicting how that would actually impact me. So
Right.
there's been some surprise energy that's come up. Oh, okay, all right. Like I
Yeah.
get it, but I kind of don't. I still have to
You
work
got
through it.
some like bonus soul partners out of the deal, some
Yeah,
bonus mirrors.
yeah, yeah. So
You're like, whoa, this is the whole kaleidoscope of mirrors over here. Yeah.
and
Mhm.
there's a whole bunch of again, like I couldn't have
Mhm.
necessarily predicted
Yeah.
um how it would. I knew it would be challenging at times. I just didn't know how it was going to actually manifest,
Yeah.
and we're getting through it, and it's totally great because my overall goal with that is that I love his family, like, and I want to be a part of it, but I get to navigate how how I get through those pieces to
Yes.
get to what I want. And it would be silly, and I believe in the past I probably would have gone, "Oh, this is hard, it must not be right."
Right.
And I think that's another thing, navigating any kind of relationship or just our life individually is like, oh, this is hard, so it must be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like,
And yeah,
no, in some other scenario, I'd be having a different kind of hard right now or
yeah,
at another time. And that's just life. Yeah. That's just
yeah.
the life part.
It's hard
And
being home alone too,
oh,
it's
yeah.
like, so what I think it was Tony Robbins who said a long time ago. He was one of my first people who inspired me back in my 20s,
Yeah.
which he's had an amazing career. But it's like, yeah, you choose what's hard.
Choose your
Like
hard. I know
it's
I'm a Capricorn moon, so I'm real good at that choose your hard. Like, it's all hard. You're gonna just live all your life and then die together. Well, yeah.
yeah.
But there's
And
some romance in there too, you know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like working out. It's hard to get
Yeah.
up and work out when you haven't done it in a while. It's also hard to not fit in your jeans. So,
Right, exactly. Which leads me to this. So at the end of every podcast, I like to show you a card and you tell me what it means. You read this card for our
ooh,
listeners.
choose wisely. Wow. Well, at first, of course, I see all the different hands doing different directions, different indicators. Um, and I love the idea looking at it. It looks like it's over water, or actually even kind of muffled by the water. But the birds, I can't quite tell what kind of birds those are, but um, just flying over. All There's only one hand that's actually closed off in a direction,
Mhm.
and there's several hands that are at least have some outlet, some opportunity. And I guess I take from that is th- choose wisely means to me sit with it, contemplate, and move forward, because we're never going to fully predict what's going to happen. But at least if we move forward with intention and not just reaction,
Yeah.
then we get to navigate that path a little bit
Yeah.
with peace, because I made this decision and I made this decision with my conscious working mind. I
Love
think
it.
it's when we're unconscious and something happens that we don't want that we look to blame, and that blaming is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But if we make the decision intentionally with our soul, we're like, okay, well, there's something I'm supposed to get out of this.
Yes. And I have to tell you, you and I connecting with spirit over this card, so much more came through. I have worked with this deck forever. It's the Psychic Tarot. Let me read it, by John Holland. And I love it, but you just opened me up to a whole other layer of meaning with this card. Because when you said, and you sit with yourself, I don't know if you saw this person sitting on the dock.
No, I did not know. I did not see that. I
So
saw, like,
beautiful.
the color, but I didn't know that was a person
And
sitting
the
on a dock.
person in the middle of all those hands you talked about, just contemplating, sitting with himself. And what's so beautiful is this card represents the Seven of Cups, which is about options and choosing from your options every day. And I love it because there are five hands doing those different signals you talked about. And then those two birds represent the other two cups. So you
Mm,
have your maybe your ego, other people, pointing in these directions, and then this connection that you have with some soul. Maybe it's your partner, could be, your mother, your child, whatever. It doesn't have to be romantic, but that connection pointing you in one direction, and maybe you're tuning into that, while so you just opened up a whole other layer to that, just being the importance of being connected with yourself within partnership and within all the things that are coming at you.
yeah,
And oh, so beautiful. And just to be really candid, and one thing I love about the way you work and the way you express yourself and the way you talk about your partnership is that a lot of people in this spiritual realm of working and doing stuff, I say a lot of people, but we will run across stories
yeah,
of these soul partnerships, and then it's like it feels very supernatural. It feels very, because it does on some levels, but you do a great job, I feel, and it's very helpful of integrating, and you're still a human living life,
yeah,
and you're going to be a human living life in partnership. And that's really important
yeah,
because so many of us do make ideal partnership this kind of fantasy island that we're escaping to, escaping from reality and going, but if
yeah,
only this partner would be this, and if only that other partner would come in, and if only that partner from the past, maybe a partner in the future. And you not only are living with this reality and saying, yeah, the partner's there and life's still lifing, but you also are saying, and at some point, I hopped out of my fantasy and I just invited him on in the front door.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
love that.
yeah. I think that's, and he's helping me grow.
Yeah.
He's grounding in so many ways because he looks at life differently than I do, but what we want together is what's connected.
Yeah.
And there's times where I help him pull into a different space, and there's time where he helps me by
Yeah.
being him. And that's what's so beautiful and magical about it. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's very eye-opening to me. I'm like, ooh, I gotta work on that.
Like those full length bathroom mirrors. I know.
Yeah, and
Well,
it's that reflection which is so
I love it.
beautiful. And
Yeah.
he's open to it and I'm open to it, and that's what makes it work.
Yes. So you really have to go to YouTube if you want to see a lot of the visuals in this podcast. But yeah, Sarah
Yeah.
has a way of visually punctuating what she's saying. That's really neat.
Thank you.
Um, and how can people reach you and work with you? And what would
I
you
think
like?
the best way, you can go to my website, sarahkrippner.com, and you can hit me up like you did with a little information request or appointment request that way. You can find me on Instagram, Embody Your Intimacy, and there's a dot between embody and your. Um, and I do have a YouTube channel, but to be honest, I don't use it that much. But I'm being told through spirit that I've got to branch out. So hopefully, I'll
Oh,
be
that's
putting a
why
little
I'm
bit more.
pushing everybody to YouTube because I never do that. So
Yeah,
yeah, that must be a little thing for you.
yeah.
So also you work with shamanic modalities and drumming, I know, and other
So
things
yeah,
you feel.
my practice is a combination of the energy and the motion with like some, like we talked about, a little bit of the practical tools, that real life tools of just getting down and doing the work, but so much of it around energy. I use a lot of sound in my work. I use breath work, and an amazing connection tool for my clients is healing through breath work individually and together. And then, yeah, with the support of the sound and the energy around that, it really creates a container where my clients open up to a different side of themselves that they weren't really necessarily thinking was there, or paying attention to. So
Mhm.
the combination of the real practical tools, and I think that's what's great about breath work, is that it's breath work is something that my male clients tend to be a little bit more attracted to, because it's, and the women love it as well, but it's not quite as woo woo.
Yeah,
But once you go through a session, you're like, wow, that was way more than I thought it was. So lots of tools for
yeah.
everybody to integrate and find a practice that suits them where they are.
Yeah, also not as many words that can appeal to masculine energy as well.
For sure. For sure. And yeah, they get to have their own experience with it. Like
Yes,
there's no, yeah, there's no,
right
well, and there's no
answer. Yeah,
judgment around any of it. But yeah,
exactly.
it's a
Exactly.
little, yeah, a tool that tends to bring all the parties together. So
Yeah, well, thank you
yeah,
so much, and I've enjoyed this talk so much with you, and I
me
know we'll
too.
connect again soon.